us humans. We must know how to leverage this technology to support us in our processes. And that is going to be a very fundamental value of how we can do research. And let's look at what can be done in this area. So just a bit of introduction to myself. I spent 20 years of my life with the multinationals, Hewlett Packard, Accenture, and in my lives as a multinational, I do come to quite a lot. In addition to that, I do contribute a lot to society through the many non-profit organizations, as you can see there, right? What is useful is of late, I have been invited to be part of the advisory board with the Responsible Technology Institute in the University of Oxford. And working with University of Oxford professors, I get to understand some of the deep research that they are looking at, and more importantly, appreciating how technology should be responsible in many forms. Those are the pictures that were taken in coming to Daegu. So the first one was probably taken in 2016, 2017, mid-2017, and 2021 when I shared my views in the Business Forum. Now, looking forward into the future, I like this picture a lot, right? So 1990, we all remember the days when you got what we call a big bottom TV. Yeah? As the TV gets flattened and becomes smaller, we start to build up our own tummy, right? And that's because we always look at technology and we did not look at what we can do with humans. The question is, right, in the next 15, 18 years, by 2040, what do we expect to be? And for the universities and researchers sitting out here today, do think about how technology should support human values. So gazing into the crystal ball, whether it's 2040, 2050, what are the considerations? Where are the areas that we need to look at, not just locally within countries, but more importantly, cross-border? I like this particular animation, right? Every one of us start to worry about AI. So, will we come to a point whereby the AI species, the robots in AI in robots, will have their own generation of activity, and one robot will be talking to the other robot, what is that thing seated next to us? I'm not sure, but it appears to be some form of non-unintelligence, right? So more machines with the deployment of AI become a lot more intelligent than us. To do that, we must understand what technology is. And to understand technology, we must look at what are the best way to leverage technology, when is the right time to leverage technology. So this graphic shows us that while many a times technology is available, and all the professors in the universities are working hard to come up with new technology, the man who can benefit from technology will end up to be too busy to leverage technology. So there has to be a great connection between the great work done by the professors in the university and the market, the industry that's going to use the technology. So it is important to make this connection between research and the industry. So, question, how will technology affect us? To understand this, it is needed that we appreciate the difference between what I call science and what I call technology. Science is the natural world. It is what it is, right? The facts, the principles, the first assumptions of what needs to be done. Technology, on the other hand, is really how we can build applications together. Technology should be built into an application that helps support us. What I want to share with you in my following slides will be what are the nuggets that is important for us to consider as we go deeper into the application of technology to support humankind. The question is, how much do each of the countries spend in R&D? And there are already some questions around how much budget we have, the investments that we talk about. And I did some research myself. I did some study, And this is a nice little graph and trend of the countries that invested in R&D. So this is an OECD report, right? That talks about the different countries and the investment in R&D out of their GDP. Of course, right on the left is USA. Right? USA spends a huge amount of their GDP, a huge percentage of GDP on R&D. That's the reason why they are very far ahead. What stands out, right? What stands out, and if you look at the third column, Korea. Korea has been investing in R&D, and I'm proud, I'm happy to have a friend, country that is investing heavily in R&D. Now, the connotation, the denotation is this, right? The blue color, all right, the blue color represents the 2020 latest statistics on investment in R&D, and the diamond represents what it was in 2010. So you look at Korea, right? From where they were, and in 10 years, increased more than 50% of the base to look at R&D. Very, very key. If we explore further and look at what are the countries investing in R&D, China, Korea mentioned, Poland, Estonia, Romania, Latvia. Those countries surprise me, because clearly there are countries that are stepping up in terms of their interest in R&D, and they will have a chance to leapfrog what we are doing. Clearly China and Korea are stepping in to ensure that they play a lead. But we must continue to work together in order to ensure that we are able to leverage and spend time on R&D. This is a very interesting chart that looks at the countries with the highest expenditure in 2020 and the amount that we're looking at. Right? All these are built in dollars, and PPP stands for purchasing power parity. Right? That means if we equalize the exchange out, what would be a nice common index? US stands out, of course, as tops, followed by China, and further down. And you see that South Korea is still very high among the Asian countries, right? Probably the top among Asian countries. The previous slide looks at the percentage of the GDP. This slide looks at the actual $1 billion spent. So Korea spends $112.9 billion US dollars in a year. When we start to look at digitalization and promotion of cross-border R&D, right? It is not just saying let's work together. There are many considerations. Yeah. Digital technology sometimes tends to be taken for granted, and as we take digital technology for granted, we also expect coordination and cooperation to happen by itself. And clearly this is not the case, right? But when we overestimate the expectation of this, it becomes challenging for us to collaborate. And hence, I want to spend some time to talk about what can we do about this. I look at some of the models on collaboration, right? Whether it is the R&D environment, whether it is between commercial companies or for large multinationals. So the left part shows the concentric circle of different collaboration model from local organizations that bring in experts from overseas to joint ventures and strategic alliances, all the way up the supply chain, where we look at more building the possibility of communities, associations, trade nations coming together. The right side looks at how knowledge transfer can take place, at the same time providing the rights of the R&D of the respective owners, but allowing a chance for collaboration to take place. I believe we are probably at an inflection point where we can seriously consider the different factors of how collaboration can take place. Whether it's technology, whether it's economics, adapting into the culture of the different geography, and more importantly, fitting into the regulations of the different countries. We are probably in the inflection point where we can work together. Well, perhaps sometimes things may not work, models may not go as smoothly as possible, but if we do not try, we will not make it. A possible model of looking how we can collaborate together will include looking at how cross-border knowledge exchange can be considered, and possibly building up a knowledge platform where cross-border collaboration can occur. And this will allow us to work together, put together common standards, the balance of how it can be adopted, and more importantly, a more progressive mindset in moving forward with this collaboration. And that will end up, right, for us, look at the possibility of integrating research activities together in the space of projects, in the space of frequency of communication, very important. If we don't talk, we don't come together and meet and discuss, we will never know that opportunities exist. And more importantly, development of new capabilities, right? New capabilities between countries so that we can, each of us, come together and find new space. So what does that mean? I'd like to propose that we may want to consider three important golden nuggets. When we come together, we need to look at three important pieces of where our common interests can fit in. I call it the ABC golden nuggets. A is where we talk about augmenting human capability. What are the technology that can augment what we humans can do, what we humans don't want to do, what humans should not be doing, and what humans cannot do. So technology should be worked in that space, and that kind of argument is cross-border. Everyone asks whether you're in Asia, in Europe, or otherwise, will face that issue. Second is it must befit ethical values, because it has to be responsible technology. It has to be technology that we all will appreciate, and we know that the end result will benefit mankind. And thirdly, how can it complement our individual potential? How can it assist us individually to get better, to be more efficient, to be more productive? Let me dive a little bit into each of these nuggets. Well, before going deep into that, here's an interesting example of a dating couple where and how they use technology to communicate. But I hope this does not happen to us in the dating function. Yeah? Tell me a little bit more about yourself. So how do you tell about yourself? How do you remember to say the right thing at the right time? Perhaps that's the best way. And we're all starting to do this today, right? Exchanging name cards versus sharing with your QR code. So the next time when somebody asks, can you introduce yourself? Make sure you don't say the wrong thing, you show them your QR code. Yeah? Yes, maybe no, right? So how can you best augment our capability? To do that, we must understand what the future of work will look like. Right? The 2 years of pandemic allow us to work from home in many areas. And as a result, we see that we are slowly changing the way we work. And each time we do that, more importantly, it is essential that we're able to understand who's going to do the work, whether it's a human or the machine, understanding a collaboration model, when and where the work will be done. We need to study that effectively, and looking at how it will be done. Many times we look at work and we tell ourselves, all right, this is the way I operate today, the machine must fit into the environment. In my consulting processes with many clients, I tell them that perhaps it's time to rethink that process. And if technology were to be adopted into the environment, sometimes it's good to look at redefining, adapting the environment to accommodate technology. We talk about autonomous vehicle, we talk about AMRs, right, indoors. One of the challenges, the AMR in moving on big carpets is a big challenge, right? So is it a technology problem or is it an infrastructure problem? So those are things that we need to explore fully to understand how that can be done. And in the collaboration process, we can certainly look at it. The best technology in one country may not be fully adopted in another country because possibly of geographic reasons. What's important is we need to end up being masters of technology and not slaves to technology. We must be able to know what technology can do for us. We must be able to understand this technology so it adds on to our capability. So augmenting capability looks at potentially three areas. replicating abilities that we don't want to do, right? Being able to supplement our ability so that we can do more, and where possible, exceed our ability so that we can achieve more than what we currently can do. Second, let's talk about befitting ethical values. The question that I'd like to ask many people is when we talk about AI, we talk about robotics, and if the AI robotics perform a particular outcome that's not to our satisfaction, who is responsible? Is it the designer? Is it a researcher? Is it the developer, the coder? Is it the user? Or is it the technology? And those questions can go on and on. Right? You have autonomous vehicle that goes into the farm and does all the work that we wanted to do. And if the machines breaks down, who's responsible? It runs over the crops in the agricultural farm. Who's responsible? So all those need to be considered. And there are different principles of ethics that we all must understand. And all countries, as they come together, should explore, right, what are the principles of ethics that are dear to your heart, important to your country, and by understanding how we collaborate together, we must understand the ethical values of each country and the common values that we will work on. A nice little advice by recent news, right? It is not that we need to be aware of AI or technology, but we need to be aware of humans who abuse technology. There are a number of institutes around the world that have been set up to look at responsible technology. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an honorary advisor in the Responsible Technology Institute out of the University of Oxford. And if you look across the globe, there are already many institutions that look at that. Whether there are institutions in your organization that look at ethical responsibility or not, well, reach out to this organization and maybe they can provide some advice as needed. In Singapore, right, we created a roadmap called the Road to a Human-Centric Digital Society. We must understand, as we start to incorporate digital technology into our lifestyle, into our society, what are the considerations. And these are the 7 points that was created by my colleague in NUS, Professor David Kramer, who actually proposed this to the Singapore community as we build technology, as we start to adopt R&D outcome into the application in industry, a list of considerations that we must look at. The third nugget that I want to look at is really how can we use technology to complement our potential and enhance on what we can do. Well, clearly, you ask the question, is the human potential limitless? Yes? No? Well, if your answer is yes, then perhaps there are a lot of other things to look at what technology can do, right? There is probably a very fine line drawn between the human capability and the technology capability. What is important is we need to understand what the technology can do and what we can do. And let's not try to compete with the machine on certain areas such as computation, such as calculation and analytics. But we can definitely keep our goal in looking at the ethical responsibility and eventually looking at the responsible use of technology. A couple of quotes from experts. This one is from Waste. Now, a lot of them may use this technology, Waste. And the CEO, Yuri, said that we must always fall in love with the problem, not the solution. Understand what the problem is and how we can use technology to solve the problem. Sometimes there's probably less use of technology and more use of human process and capability that we should consider. Second quote from Steve Jobs. Simple is harder than a complex situation. And this is very clear. A lot of things that we humans do is intuitive, it's so simple. But to try to program that into the machine is highly complex because the machine cannot understand intuition. Right? When we look at complex mathematical formulas and we're trying to find the answer. The machine can do it very fast once the algorithm is written properly. But for us, it's complicated. Yeah. So understand the difference and use this as a guidance to look at how we can collaborate and work together. I'll just skip through this, but I want to come to this last slide that I have before I pass on to my colleagues in New Zealand and the Philippines. I like this message from Max Planck, and all of you know Max Planck is the father of quantum physics. Quantum physics, a term that's slowly starting to be a common everyday language in many discussions. I remember I was in an exhibition and somebody was telling me that he used quantum physics to do psychic analysis. And I'm looking at, wow, how does that apply? Very interesting. I'm still researching in that. But what Max said was this, and I'd like all of you to remember this. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. In other words, if we continue to be blinded by our past, our bias, that things cannot happen, this cannot be solved, we will struggle with solving the problem. But if we have an open mind and be positive about what can be possible, you will open up new innovations. If collaboration between two countries, between two institutes, had obstacles in the past, and we are able to keep an open mind and look at what we can do moving forward into the future, looking at things differently, the things that we try to do will change in front of us. So that's what I have. Slightly different from the technical discussion you had in the first 3 years, but to trigger some thinking and some appreciation. If we were to work together, if we look at cross-border collaboration, what are the considerations? Some of the quotes that I shared with you from the experts are very meaningful, whether it's Yuri, whether it's Steve Jobs, or whether it is Max Planck. I believe these people were successful because they were able to look at things very differently and achieve their outcome. And I hope collaboration between the different clusters can come together and achieve similar results as well. Well, thank you very much. And I'd like to see if anyone you have any questions for me.